in The Sims 4, I am making the Quidditch World Cup campsite. I was always intrigued by this in the books, just a bunch of witches and wizards getting together and just hanging out at a campsite until the whole thing goes up in flames. That's not as exciting. But I really wanted to make this in The Sims 4. I've been going through and making a whole neighborhood of just movie builds, and this was kind of the most off-the-wall build I did. But anyway, first I started by putting down the tents. I'm not quite sure which pack they came in, but I know that they can change colors. And then I decided to make my own tents. Now, this took me forever to figure out. I actually built another version of this that I didn't record, and this is the second time I'm building it. The first time I built it, this took me forever to figure out. Finally, I figured out that you can put curtains in a circle, and then you can get these roofs to kind of match, and it will make a tent-like structure. You have to lift them up a little bit, and then once you get rid of the walls, there's just like this little floating circus tent situation. I love it so much. And you can get creative with the little openings as well. And like I said earlier, I've always been intrigued by this. I think it would be so fun to go and visit the Quidditch World Cup and just see people from all the different regions. I wonder if they had Americans there. I know there's like the American Ilvermorny School. Maybe some of them came for that. Anyway, here is the red tent. This one is especially giving circus tent. And then I move on to the yellow one, or orange. It's kind of a bit of both. When I made this the first time, I added some characters for fun, and I'm going to add some characters here at the end. I did a little bit different characters this time, but I just wanted to make some people in the wizarding world that you don't often see as much, not some of the main characters, but I wasn't quite sure how to do this. I know that in Harry Potter, his little Arthur Weasley's tent he borrows from his friend, the tents are magical, and when you go inside of them, they get bigger. I wasn't quite sure how to achieve this, but you can see how I do it later on. But for now, I decided to do a little more of a square tent situation. And again, I go in with the curtains. But this time I had to get creative because there is a space between the roof and the curtains. And I didn't want that space because then it would look like the curtain part was floating. So I went through and I looked at all these little sculptural details we have. You'll see in a second. It was quite laborious, but I went through and I sized those down and overlapped them, and so they were making this little barrier between the roof and the curtains. It took a very long time. I think I skip over a bunch of it so that you don't have to watch it. Maybe not on this guy. This is sped up, obviously, so you don't have to watch how agonizing it was, but you know, it's worth it. And then when you go through and delete the walls, there's not that awkward space. And I do it again over on the square building that I built here in a second. Now for this last color, I was trying to get the roofs to match, and you only have so many options of smooth roofs you can make. So I kind of just thought, well, I really want to do like a purplish situation or a blue. So we're just going to make the roof white and pretend it looks good that way. So I went through and I added all the little stone pieces, and then it was time to add the doorway. And you will see in a minute that once I get these tents all set up, the way I got around the situation where the tent is magically bigger on the inside is I actually make a basement. And I love when they finally added ladders to the game, because now we can have a basement or go to another level like a little attic or something without taking up so much space. But before I do that, I forgot I added a bunch of accessories. So I looked up a bunch of pictures of the camps, and it looks like everybody's just all squished together. But there's a bunch of flags and there's a bunch of random chimneys because these are magical tents. Of course you can have chimneys in them. And so I put them in every single one of the tents. And then I started to add some campfires where you can see that everybody is just chilling out and cooking all their stuff. And then I wanted to add some seating, and I noticed in the pictures there were actually some muggle chairs, like camping chairs, so I added some of those and some hay bales. And I like with the little campfires that like the chairs automatically attach on, but with these bigger campfires you kind of just have to place them yourself. And then I went and I added some laundry lines. Fun story, I bought the laundry pack just for this because I noticed in the pictures there was a bunch of laundry hanging up. It took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to get clothes on the actual line, but once I figured it out, we were in business. And so I put some random laundry buckets around, other buckets, And every once in a while you see me go in and look at a screenshot of this just because I want to see what it's going to look like when I actually go in and save this to the gallery. I want the little screenshot to look good. Then it was time to add some more dimension. So I started to add pathways between all the different tents. I tried to make it look natural, like where you would automatically walk back and forth to get from different places. And then I tried to make some like rough spots beneath the clotheslines and around the fire pits. Just see me going through there and maybe add different colors inside of the tents. And then in a second here, I start to add vegetation because I don't want it to look just so plain. Because, they came and they just like popped up on a field. So there's going to be stuff there already anyways. You just got to watch out for those rocks. There's nothing worse than like camping and you're laying on top of a rock. Although that wouldn't matter if you were in your fancy tent that was magic and it opened up and then you wouldn't even be on rocks. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I especially thought it would be funny if I added those little like bushes that people use as bathrooms because maybe people are desperate. When you're camping and you don't want to like go to your magic toilet tent, so you just use the magic bush. I don't know what your camping experiences are like, but that happens to me all the time. Anyway, so I add some wildflowers, some vegetation, and usually I don't like when the bushes poke into the buildings. It kind of like gives me the heebie-jeebies, but I didn't mind as much because these were like tent situations. Anyway, I'm looking again to see how the little screen capture is working out, and I added some sunflowers for a little color. And the thing with the laundry is you have to have Sims in order for them to put laundry up, so I had to add characters to this. That's why I chose a bunch of fun ones here in a little bit. After I'm done adding all of this, and I think it looks good, I went into night mode and added some lights. I debated on which lights to add, but I finally went with these little like tulip things. I thought they looked the most magical. I didn't want the lights to be like super intrusive. I wanted them to kind of disappear, but not look super modern, obviously. And here's what it looked like. I was loving it. It was just giving so many good vibes. I wish I could have added more clutter, but I wasn't quite sure what to add. And then this is when I go in and start adding the basements. I decided to use the 3 circular tents as my main tents. So not every one of these tents is going to have a magical underground, just the circular ones. So I did ladders, and then I did a little entryway thing for the ladders because I didn't want these to be open just to like the general public. The thing with Sims builds is if you don't lock doors, people are going to go in your houses and do whatever they want. And when I make multiple houses on a lot, I'm not quite a fan of that. Oh, right here I am building a little tent for Luna and her father. I just gave it away, but I thought that they would have nargles or whatever I could make the equivalent of outside of their tent. So I wanted to add that. Anyway, so I made it so they would have a front door so not everyone could just sleep in any bed or use any kitchen because I like a little separation there. And with this build, I skip over a lot because I struggled so much with how to do this. It ended up looking a little bit too cottagey at one point. And then I remembered there was like this Witches and Wizards pack, which was super whimsical. And like, you can see this desk has like a jewel in it. And I thought this was going to be perfect for Luna Lovegood and her father. They each have a room. Luna has a room on the left, and Zenio, I don't know how to say his name, his room's on the right. And then I just started cooking, getting all this magical stuff in. I changed the wallpaper, made everything a little less cottagecore, which I think kind of fits their vibe, but not really. And the character I got for Luna, you'll see near the end, is amazing. I don't make the characters. I'm not a big fan of that. I just like making the builds. But someone else made it, and it looks just like her from the movie, and I was so happy about that. And I just downloaded what pack is it? Like the cottage living one with like the foxes and stuff, which is the lot I built this on, which ended up being perfect. Anyway, a lot of the outfits that Luna was wearing are actually from that pack, which I'm so glad I got. Otherwise, it's really frustrating to have to like re-clothe Sims when you don't own the packs. And I only have like half the packs in the Sims. It's expensive to get all of them. But anyway, I'm using the Sims 3 camera so that I can rotate everything just a little bit. If you use the Sims 4 camera, you've only got like 8 different points or angles you can put everything on. And I like to rotate everything so it's not perfect, just a little off. And I used a bunch of stuff that was actually from the Star Wars pack, like those hanging plants and that random plant, because there's some random looking stuff. And I thought, you know what? Luna and her father, they're probably into a bunch of stuff like nargles. Again, There's other stuff, but I don't know all the names of it. I like Harry Potter, guys, but it's not like my main obsession. I just like to build things for it. There's just a lot of lore, and I'm into a lot of lore. Anyway, but do you know what I'm also into? A Lord of the Rings. Lore and Lord of the Rings. So that's like my favorite thing. So there's like greenery in the kitchen because of course there is. Maybe they want to pick a little bit of like grapes or the magical version, and so they just bop over onto the kitchen. Now, again, these are like their camping houses. This isn't their houses. So they're going for like a mini version of what they would have at home. This is just like their summer home, but like a cheap man's version. So I put that magical desk in Gino's room along with this magic book situation. And you'll see me make that in a minute, but I wanted to put bookshelves in here, but it's so frustrating. You can't put bookshelves where you're going to point the camera at because they don't disappear when you put the walls down. So I got rid of those, and I put a cauldron up top because it was big and obnoxious, and I feel like it felt like went with the vibes of the character. I put a little, what is that thing called? Oh, an easel in there so that Luna could paint. I feel like in the movie she paints all over her houses, so I thought she would enjoy that. I didn't put a king bed in there for Zeno. He just gets a little twin bed situation, and I wanted his room to look very much like the night sky because I feel like he's way into like astronomy and like he knows he's a Sagittarius and like a Virgo moon rising or whatever. I don't know all of that, but he knows all of it for sure. And then I made the bathroom again. It's a little whimsical. And Luna's bedroom, I made more cutesy, you know? And of course, in every bathroom, I had to add a hamper because in order to get the clothesline to work, you have to get a bucket. And in order to get a bucket, you have to have the hamper. And in order to use the hamper, you have to have the Sims take a bath. It's really complicated. I didn't realize it was going to be that complicated. I just wanted to put clothes on a hamper. I didn't know I was signing up for like a lifetime of struggle. Anyway, here's Luna's room. I thought about putting a bush in there she could trim, but like it took up too much room, so we just put a guitar in there. I wanted to put up a picture of Hogwarts, and I think I do that later, but at this time I couldn't find it, and I was just trying to like go quickly, so I didn't end up doing that. And then I move on to my next character, which I decided to make Victor Krum. He's playing in the Quidditch World Cup, so realistically, he probably has his like players situation where like he stays with all the team members, but I like the fact that he's over here and he probably is using his parents' tent, and so it's real vibey. It's got like, you know, vampire core situation. I don't know what things are like in Bulgaria, but in my mind it was like reds and blacks and kind of giving like Transylvania Overlord. I don't know. So I went with that, and it was really luxe. I picture him having really rich parents. I don't know why. So I went with dark reds, and then the kitchen, I just went with like, a lot of it is actually from the vampire pack. Maybe I'm thinking that Victor would be a vampire if they were more prominent in the books. Are they in the books at all? I don't think they are actually. But anyway, I went through, added some shelving. I didn't use the upper cabinets a lot because I felt like they looked a little too modern. Sometimes when I don't want to like decorate the walls or do upper cabinets, I put in really busy wallpaper or molding, and then you can kind of get away with leaving the walls more blank. This I have found. I started to add the chairs, the stools, and again, I like to do a kitchen little area and a little couch area. It's weird though when you're making Harry Potter builds because you go to add like fun things and you can't put like a TV or like a computer. So you're like, how are you going to have fun? Like, what did people do before they had computers and such? So I end up adding a lot of books. If not full bookcases, then I add the books on the table so they still can actually read them. As you can see, I made this little room a little shorter so that the room was a little more long, and then I would have more room for the bedroom. I did put a music player in here, so you know, he can listen to some tunes on his gramophone. And I added a couple more things as I went along. And look at the little ship I put on there. That reminded me of the little ship they came to for the World Cup. Or not the World Cup. You know, the cup thing that makes... I told you I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. I forget these things. Anyway, I decided that Victor's like bed should be really obnoxious. And this bed is perfect. If you look at it closely, there's like curtains on the side. And I wanted to make him have this giant wardrobe because I figure
I don't know why, but maybe he's into some nice clothes. I just got those vibes. I end up getting rid of the wardrobe in the end, but it's there in spirit. But again, it got in the way of seeing everything that was going on in the room, because I just always point my cameras one direction when I'm playing. And then if there's one thing in the way, it annoys me so bad. So we got rid of that wardrobe in the end. And I don't know if you noticed, but I added another picture in Luna's room, and it's this castle, and it looks like Hogwarts, and she just loves her friends there and probably loves Hogwarts, so I decided to add that as well. There's the hamper. Once again, the shackles that bind me to the laundry just so I could have the cute little clothesline. And this last one, I decided to do Oliver Wood. Now, in the other version of this I made, I did I think Seamus and a bunch of other characters. I forgot who. Cedric Diggory and his dad. But this one I decided just to do Oliver Wood. He's not as fancy. He doesn't get double bedrooms. Everything is just in one room except the bathroom. He's got a studio apartment situation. Again, I feel like his parents aren't super rich, so when they go camping, they don't need as much. And I'm wondering, is it just Arthur Weasley that has a magical tent, or do all of them? In my version, they all do. I did end up using upper cabinets in this one. It's more of a chill style. And I like to think that maybe Oliver Wood inherited this tent from his parents, and he's kind of made it his own. And by made it his own, I mean that he added a foosball table in. I'm not quite sure why I thought foosball was wizardly enough, but not TVs, but it doesn't involve electronics, so I thought it would work. So he gets his little foosball table and a guitar. He probably writes songs for his girlfriend. I don't know. When you get awkwardly serenaded, I can see him doing that. Maybe, he discovers more interests besides Quidditch later on in his life. But I really wanted this to have just a simple, homey environment. It's not too austere, not too fancy, just kind of cutesy-wootsy. And I ended up accidentally not locking his door from the other people, which I kind of liked because people randomly go and play foosball. Right there is Luna, and there's Oliver Wood. Again, I didn't make these characters. I got them off of the gallery, and this is how everything ended up looking. There's Dino and there's Victor doing some push-ups in his little room, and then here's Luna in a second, and I think she's so darling. She looks so much like her character in the movie. And here is the overview. All of it together. I love the way this turned out. I think it's so cute. I want to do more Harry Potter builds. I'm not sure which ones, but I really also want to do Lord of the Rings ones. That's where my heart truly lies. But thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. You just got to watch out for those rocks. There's nothing worse than camping and you're laying on top of a rock. Although that wouldn't matter if you were in your fancy tent that was magic and it opened up and then you wouldn't even be on rocks. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
I especially thought it would be funny if I added those little bushes that people use as